Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining us and welcome to the Founders in LA podcast. I'm your host, Ethan Cole, and this is an opportunity to shine the spotlight through the product lens on some of the exceptional technology leaders we have as part of the LA community in an unedited, one take organic conversation. With us today is Cullen Gallagher. Thanks for coming to the studio, Cullen.
Hey, thanks for having me.
This is going to be a great one. But first, a word from our sponsors. Founders in LA is brought to you by Unita Club. Unita Club is the co-working space that sets itself apart. With locations in El Segundo, Manhattan Beach, and Hermosa, Unita is where creativity flourishes. Unlike traditional offices, they provide an inspiring environment where ideas can thrive and businesses can grow. With Unita, there's no hidden fees, flexible terms, options for dedicated offices, and unlimited access to conference rooms, a photo studio, a podcast studio much like this one, plus standard and 3D printers and 24/7 access at any of their locations. They're local champions who support neighborhood businesses, open their event spaces to nonprofits, and celebrate art, music, and culture. Join Unita Club and experience co-working like never before. Learn more at www.unita.club. That's UNITA.CLUB. We're also brought to you by the Product Managers Association Los Angeles, available at pma.la. They're the largest professional organization for product designers in LA. With more than 4,000 members from over 500 companies, they host monthly meetups, organize a product leader council, and have a mentorship program where they connect working product managers with students from underrepresented groups to build a better, more diverse next gen. To learn more about PMA, go to pma.la. To learn more about the mentorship program, go to pma.la/mentorship. Our guest today is Cullen Gallagher. He is the co-founder and CEO of Lunch. Cullen, can you give us a 30-second description of Lunch?
Yeah, what we're trying to do at Lunch is to build payments networks in legacy verticals. So originally starting in government. There's a little bit of an imbalance in government, still using a lot of paper checks and also slow payment times. And so if you're a small business selling to your local government, that's a big pain. So what we've done is we've built a free payments network. So we give the government free digital payments so they can pay the way we're all used to being paid. And also on the other side, we have embedded supplier financing so that if you are working with the government and you're waiting on a payment, we know the government's good for the contract. So we'll get you some money up front.
Oh, interesting. So this is solving a problem of the speed at which startups need to move or small companies need to move versus the speed at which government can move and approve and pay for things.
Exactly. Yeah, it is a lot about the velocity of money. It's about working capital for a lot of small businesses. This is less of a problem if you're Lockheed Martin or whoever.
Right.
But there are thousands of small businesses working with every school district and municipality across the country. We have a bunch of these, approved vendor lists from local municipalities. A small town might work with 2,000 businesses in a given year. A big city like LA, 45 or 50,000 or more,
Right.
Working directly with the local school system or with the government. And so we saw this as a really interesting distribution vector into small underserved businesses. And then also sort of this risk arbitrage of being able to provide them capital, which normally you would not fund these small businesses because their cash flows are lumpy or anything like that. But on their government contracts, as long as they make delivery, the government's good for the money.
Right.
So there's this unique opportunity here to rethink what a payment network could be. The other piece of that puzzle is, governments are, approving payments. That takes time. It has to run all the way up the chain. They have to release the funds. Then they're going to put a paper check in the mail. And so some of that is completely necessary. The reason that governments take so long to pay is because they don't want to waste your taxpayer dollars. They want to make sure the right dollar is going to the right person right on time. And so we noticed that there was always going to be a payment delay, no matter what, because they can't mess that stuff up. They get audited every single year. And so we said, okay, that payment delay is a pain point for the businesses that you want to work with, the small underserved businesses in your community. So let's just solve that. And I think we've kind of built an interesting model, really being probably the first payments network that doesn't charge transaction fees, but it's kind of unique because of the space that we're in.
Did you start with the covering the government side or covering the small business side?
Started on small business side. The government stuff is new and interesting. And I know we were just talking about our mutual friend Travis Corrigan. When I was coming up with the idea for this company, obviously talking with my co-founder, but Travis and I talked about large companies and the phased approach. Really the shining one there is like Tesla or SpaceX, right? You want to go to Mars, you got to, for some reason, build an electric car first, right? All of these things that you need to do to stack on each other in order to be able to make, a multiplanetary species happen. And so it's like a phased approach. And what we started with was actually accounts receivable automation, which is, it sounds very boring. It is very boring. But what we did is we worked with a lot of ed tech vendors and said, hey, we know you're working with your local school. Does it take a long time to collect? And they're like, yes. I'm like, cool, let us take that over for you, for free or almost free, essentially. And what we ended up doing was learning a lot about how to collect from government agencies very quickly, because we weren't just collecting from 1 or 2 or 10 like all these small companies were. We were collecting from thousands. And so we were able to automate a lot of that process. From there, we took that data and we went to private lenders and said, look at how good the credit is of all these municipalities. They take a long time. We've built software that helps us collect faster.
Right.
Would you guys lend against this? And I think, we were right around our pre-seed and we raised a, $100 million debt facility because the lenders around us saw the same thing. They're like, oh, this is government-backed debt.
Right.
Like, it's not going to default. And so we were able to then layer on the other thing that we do for small businesses, which was financing. And it's invoice factoring for any of my invoice factoring nerds out there. It's essentially like net terms financing. You're going to you might get paid somewhere between 90 and 120 days from the government. You don't know. But you need to get paid in less than 30 to keep the lights on. We'll pay you like same day. And then we go collect on your behalf. And now, to your initial question, did you start on the small business side or do you start on the government side? Well, now we're layering in the government piece. We want to be on the other side of that transaction as well. And that's why we facilitate digital payments. So we become the vendor portal for governments because they don't want to have to hold all the vendor bank data. They don't want to mess up. They're already dealing with all of the requirements around their regulations for their particular agency. They don't want to add banking regulations on top of that. So we said, hey, we've already onboarded all these small businesses. Just give us all your small businesses. We'll onboard them. We'll, tokenize their bank account information and make sure that that's held safely and securely. And so you can feel comfortable that when you pay, it's getting to the right business. And that kind of just changes the paradigm for an entire section of the economy, right? Because the government is so big, but taking them off of paper checks and giving them an opportunity to quickly and efficiently pay their vendors. And for us, we provide that for free because on the other side of the transaction, I get to meet all these thousands of small businesses. And yes, financing is something that they need, but they might want, credit card issuance or accepting credit cards, or a lot of them need invoicing, which we provide on our platform. There's other things around working with the government, bonding and insurance that we want to be able to provide eventually. So just be this kind of hub for anyone that wants to work with the government. You got to go to this hub. You'll get paid here. You'll be able to get financing here. You'll be able to do a lot of other things and just make it super simple.
So how did you find your way to dedicating your life to this?
Yeah, it's the most exciting thing to dedicate your life to is invoice factoring.
Every young boy's dream.
Yeah, I had some, I was in the military for a long time. I flew C-17s, cargo planes for the Air Force. Got out, moved to LA, still in the reserves, so still do that a little bit. I'd known about the slowness of government for up close and personal.
Yeah.
There's the same problem in the military of getting paid for your travel vouchers. That takes like a really long time. So maybe a little of the seed of the idea was there when I was filling out travel vouchers when I was in my 20s. But I moved to LA. I worked for a production company for a little bit. So I did a little stint in entertainment and then went to business school where I kind of caught the entrepreneurial bug. And my first company really, we're trying to sort of reinvent the sports network. We built a computer vision platform that could watch sports and esports and automatically clip out the highlights in real time. And you can imagine the type of people we were selling that software to. It was sports teams and leagues and broadcasters, but also a lot of colleges, because you can think on a Friday night or a Saturday at UCLA or whatever, they might have 10 or 12 simultaneous events going on, and they didn't want to park a production truck outside of each one. So instead they just piped the stream to us. System would clip out the highlights in real time, share them to Twitter, do all that type of stuff. And so we had a ton of colleges on our platform. We had the Pac-12, we had the America East Conference. We were, doing a bunch of work all across the country, but started to realize like, wow, these government agencies, everyone else pays with a credit card and the government agencies is mailing me a check 3 months later.
Still, yeah.
Yeah. And then I worked at PlayVersus in between, which is another big, great LA startup here. And I saw the same thing at the high school level. We were selling esports tournament software into high schools, and a large percentage of our schools just hadn't paid in months. And it was a little bit, it was a lot on the school, but a little bit on us as well, because the schools were like, hey, we need your W-9, or you need to fill out the approved vendor form, or you are sending this to the wrong department. All these things that you have to figure out in order to just get paid. And so I was like, I'd seen that problem twice before. So I started calling other companies that worked in the government space, like, hey, is getting paid a problem for you? And overwhelmingly, everyone's like, yes, it takes forever. And everyone would say, the government will never stiff you, but man, are they going to take a long time to pay? And I go, okay, there's something there. And that's where we started to sort of build out. Jason, my co-founder, and I really started to build out this idea for what this payments network could be. And we became sort of obsessed with this idea. We would hang out, like, because, obviously like friends and get along, but we would hang out and all we would do is talk about invoices and cash flow and the most boring stuff. I'm sure we're the least fun people that you could ever have at a party.
That's fantastic. And so it was born out of need of what you saw around you. And I just can't help but think of like the disconnect between startups and cash flow issues they have and the need that they have for money now versus the government, where you're good for it, but it could take us 6 months. But then in startup land, 6 months is like 6 years. So
yeah. I mean, and that's the thing too. Like, even some governments are very good at paying. I would, I don't want to paint with too broad of a brush, but even a 30-day cash flow delay when you need to make payroll next Friday, like that, you can't wait. I talked to a company last week and they're like, we've got $1 million in AR from cities all over the country. $1 million. Imagine what you could do with $1 million today, as opposed to waiting 3 or 4 months for it.
Yeah.
And so, there's a need there. I don't think it's a need for everyone, but like, there's a long-term goal where, hey, everyone just pays 1% and everything gets transferred instantly. Right. And so no one waits. You get the government contract, you make delivery, the money's in your account same day. I think I would pay 1 penny on every dollar for that, as opposed to waiting. I don't know if we'll ever get there, but if we can facilitate, kind of the top line goal, can we facilitate every government payment to one of their suppliers, and will, a good chunk of those suppliers elect to get paid early? Like, that's kind of where we want to go. And then from there, like, the sky's the limit. The things that you can do once you're inside and seeing both sides of that transaction, the data associated with both sides, what they're buying, what they're selling, all those different things become very powerful. The data kind of becomes the value prop at that point.
Absolutely. And having got to get there, being like the helping hand on both sides.
Exactly.
That's an incredible project you're working on here.
Yeah, it's a weird model, but we're not just making this up on the fly. Like, this is a lot of customer conversations, a lot of, talking with either businesses or government. Like, in the last month, I probably talked to, 15 or 20 different businesses, but then also 15 or 20 different government agencies, and asking them like, hey, how does your procurement process work? How do you pay? What platforms are you using to manage this process right now? How come you're not using digital payments? Like, all these questions, but you have to do that legwork to, if you're going to disrupt, like, that sort of overused term, like, you want to disrupt an industry, you have to understand the industry to a certain level first. Like, sometimes people, hit it out of the park on the first one, but like, we know that it's going to be a lot easier to do if we have done our homework first.
That's incredible. It sounds like you guys are doing your homework throughout the country. If looking to ground this in LA, if you could think of from your experiences here, like what is the most LA thing that's happened to you? It could be tech related, or it doesn't have to be.
I kind of have a short tech one. Years ago at my last company, again, it was in the sports space, sports and AI, and a group here in LA called Vader was doing they were doing a conference, and they had an opportunity to pitch Mark Cuban. It was like Mark Cuban and Brian Lee of the Honest Company, and I think Mike Jones from Science, and our company got to go up there. So kind of LA to me, get to go pitch Mark Cuban. We didn't win, which is kind of a bummer, but that was good. I would say the most LA thing that's ever happened to me that has nothing to do with startups is like a few years ago, I blew out my knee, and I had a bunch of friends that always like to go do karaoke. And I was like, oh, I'm going to learn a karaoke song. And so I spent a lot of time trying to find any sort of singer that had a voice similar to mine, so I could like learn that song. And then I found out like no famous singer has a voice like yours because they are good at singing and you are not. So I ended up learning. I was like, okay, I'll just learn a rap song, and but me being me, kind of like super extra on everything I want to do. I decided to learn the hardest rap song I could find, which is Rap God.
Okay.
And then like I just had this secret weapon in my pocket for 6 or 7 months. And I got invited to a party
just in case karaoke came up.
just in case karaoke came up. And
That's
then like
incredible.
6 or 7 months later, one of my classmates from business school was throwing a party, and his wife's an actress. And so like in the Hollywood Hills, like it was a celebrity party,
Okay.
right? Like Susan Sarandon's out on the porch, like Mekhi Phifer's over here. And she's like, she'd bought a karaoke machine and she was running around. She's like, will you sing karaoke? Will you sing karaoke? No one's singing karaoke. I bought this machine specific for this party. And I was like, I'll sing karaoke. I mean, a room full of celebrities. I'm like, I'll start this off.
And you're the guys who wanted to do it.
Yeah. And so like, and it's like, one of these beautiful Hollywood Hills homes that opens up to the patio. And there's like 125 people out here. And the song Rap God starts like very distinctively. It's like one chord just getting banged on the piano. And I look up, and all the dudes that knew rap like looked up and looked at me and they go, nah, not this guy. But then I started doing it and it started going really well. And this guy, Lamorne Morris, who was on the show New Girl that I was on at the time, that I watched and I really liked, he played this character Winston.
Oh, I love Winston.
Yeah, Winston. Yeah. So Winston's over here rapping along. And I'm like, there's a second microphone on this stand. And I just grab it and I just throw it to Winston. And he comes up and we finish the whole song together. And when he gets to the fast part, he's like, you got this. And literally we finished the song Rap God. And it's mostly for Winston, being good at it. But the entire room, a room full of celebrities is cheering, is just like losing their minds. And then like everybody started doing karaoke. And I was like, this is it. This is why you learn a song for karaoke, so that when you're in a room full of celebrities, you can just blow the roof off the party. And it was like, probably that's the most LA thing that's ever happened.
With Winston from New Girl.
With Winston from New Girl. Yeah. And he even goes, we should do another one. I was like, all right, yeah, man. He's like, do you know Forgot About Dre? And I was like, no. And he just went through like 9 rap songs. He's like, do you know only Rap God? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, you're weird, dude. Yeah. Anyway, so I always appreciate that.
I love that. That's amazing. Oh, that's why I guess we always have to learn 2 songs.
Yeah, I should have learned, Look at Me Now or whatever.
That was fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Cullen, for coming here today. Thank you for sharing about lunch and for sharing your most LA thing, which is one of the most LA things I've ever heard.
Thank you.
Phenomenal. I also like to thank our sponsors, PMALA and Unida. I'd like to thank you all for listening to us. And if you like what you hear, please smash that subscribe button. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll catch you next time on Founders in LA.